How does change happen in therapy? Choosing a therapist is such a big decision. It's so confusing because therapists like me do so many things and they use all sorts of complicated words full of academic jargon to describe their particular style of therapy. I'm trained in several different styles, so I'm part of this chaos myself. There are detailed explanations of every therapeutic approach on my website. I describe my work as eclectic, blended, or integrative, but this all sounds a bit boring. Instead, I have created a story to explore different approaches to use the different approaches I use to help my clients. A group of therapists meet for a coffee. Each of them has a different approach to therapy, and a lively discussion takes place, during which each tries to defend their way of working. Each claims that their methods are the most assured to make their clients get better. They talk in turn, gesticulating and impassioned, their egos jostling for place around the table. They can't reach a consensus, and one suggests they go and see the Buddha, asking for fresh wisdom. So they leave the coffee shop and they go to a remote place to meet the Buddha, who kindly agrees to hear them all out. The first one to come forward is Sybil, the CBT or Cognitive Behaviour Therapist, who states, "We are what we think, and our emotions and reactions are derived from our thoughts. If we want to change our emotions or reactions, we start by changing thoughts that are not factual, not balanced, or not otherwise useful." To this, the Buddha smiled and said, "Of course, Sybil. CBT borrows from my teachings. How could I disagree with you?" The CBT therapist felt chaffed, but her moment of glory was abruptly interrupted by the next therapist. This is Alan, who practiced the ACT approach to CBT, that is, acceptance and commitment therapy. Alan spoke up in defense of ACT. If we want to change our emotions or reactions, we start by accepting our thoughts, our emotions. We have to start by accepting our demons. This is the way to create a rich and meaningful life, while accepting the pain that inevitably goes with it. Change is about taking effective action, guided by our deepest values and in which we are fully present and engaged. It's only through mindful action that we can create a meaningful life. Of course, as we attempt to create such a life, we will encounter all sorts of barriers in the form of unpleasant and unwanted private experiences, thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, urges, and memories. ACT teaches mindful skills as an effective way to handle these private experiences. The Buddha seemed pleased to hear what Alan said and nodded sagely. "This is true, Alan." Here, Sophie stepped forward to assert that compassion focused therapy, CFT, another branch of CBT, brings another perspective. It's only kindness to yourself, that promotes happiness and confidence. How you treat yourself sets the tone for how others will treat you. Some people struggle with difficult emotions, memories, or because of their vivid imagination, and they worry constantly, imagining things that will never happen. The use of guided memories and fantasies stimulates the mind and the body. This is, in my opinion, continued Sophie, the CFT therapist, the way to stimulate kindness and the soothing system in the person. Most certainly, agreed the Buddha. The principles you describe are grounded in Buddhist tradition. Compassion is indeed a sensitivity to suffering in self and others, with a commitment to try to alleviate and prevent it. Michael stepped forward with a serious demeanor. "What about mindfulness in CBT? You said it, Buddha. Their work is grounded in Buddhist tradition. So of course I agree with these guys. But they are missing an important component, said Michael. I don't want to be mistaken for mainstream mindfulness techniques, as mindfulness is not relaxation. It's only when the mind disappears that thoughts disappear. We use mindfulness methods in therapy, methods for every problem, and each person can stick with the method that works for them. The Buddha smiled at Michael and his notions of mindfulness. Absolutely. And then Emily, the EMDR therapist, chimed in. I noticed that nobody talks about trauma here, and yet all our clients are in some way traumatized. EMDR, or eye movement desensitization reprocessing, is not just working on explicit trauma or post traumatic stress disorder. There is plenty of research about how this method helps with anxiety, depression, panic, phobias, medical conditions, bipolar disorder, grief, loss, pain, performance anxiety, sleep disturbances, and so much more. EMDR is designed to resolve unprocessed traumatic memories and to resume the brain's natural healing. Processing is very important in my job with my clients. EMDR mimics REM sleep and helps with processing. The Buddha interrupted. Don't worry, Emily. You don't need to justify EMDR further. I understand. If you can focus your eyes, you can focus your mind. The Buddha continued. The eyes can be used for the inner journey. As Osho taught, a single jump from the eyes can lead you to the source. That's not possible from the hand, not possible from the heart, not possible from anywhere else in the body. From elsewhere, you will have to travel a long way. The distance is great, but from the eyes, a single step is enough to enter into yourself. That is why eyes have been used continuously in religious, yogic, and tantric practices. Rosie, the Rogerian therapist, piped up next, who spoke up for person centered therapy. People are like plants, and plants require different growing conditions. And every plant is different. Some require direct sunlight or a dark corner, or some more water than others, and varying temperatures, even at different stages of growth. A therapist needs to be a good gardener and provide the core condition for their plants to help them achieve self acceptance and personal growth. A plant knows how to blossom and flower, and similarly, every client is an expert in themselves. My ego doesn't exist in therapy. People blossom and take directions I don't expect. My method is the relationship itself, explained Rosie. Buddha nodded. Your words are full of the bodhisattva spirit, and I can hear the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. Your principles and practices comply with the Buddhist teachings of phenomenology, actualizing tendency, and innate eagerness to alleviate suffering. Of course, I agree with you, Rosie, said the Buddha. Who is next? Said the Buddha. Tom, the transactional analyst therapist, stepped in. What's your position? Asked the Buddha. Every person is made up of three parts, said Tom. P stands for parent, and this is our embedded voice of authority, absorbed conditioning, learning, and attitudes from when we were young. We were conditioned by parents, teachers, older people, next door neighbors, aunts and uncles, and also the general culture, religion, media, and TV. Parents, deliberately or unconsciously, teach their children from birth how to behave, think, feel, and perceive. Our parent is made up of a huge number of hidden, recorded playbacks, characterized by phrases or attitudes, beginning with how to, under no circumstances, always, and never forget, don't lie, cheat, or steal, and so on, or expressed in the form of musts, shoulds, and oughts. C stands for child, And these are our primitive, raw memories, feelings, and emotional bodily data within each of us. When an emotion dominates reason, the child is in control. A stands for adult, and this is our ability to think and determine actions for ourselves. I understand, said the Buddha, as the parent is our taught concept of life. The child is our felt concept of life. The adult is our thought concept of life. I visited many places and met many people, said the Buddha. I didn't go to learn, but to find out who wasn't me. I have decontaminated myself from society and from my father's teachings. I agree with you. And you? Said the Buddha, referring to Coral, another therapist who had not yet spoken. I notice a smile on your face whilst your colleagues were talking. Tell me why you were smiling. Coral was a cognitive constructivist psychotherapist and replied, I was smiling because people are complex, and you can't find a solution or a single method with complexity. Instead, you have to embrace complexity itself. Our experience, our childhood, our attachments will create patterns. We all struggle with our inherited and shaped psychological organization. The way we organize our thoughts and emotions, which also conditions our attitudes, speculations, reactions, ideas, and behaviors. This can also provoke dysfunctional patterns such as phobias, obsessive compulsive patterns, and depression. The Buddha smiled back. Yes, of course. A flower is there. You can say something about it, and that's a thought. You can say it's beautiful. You can say it's ugly. Whatever you say about the flower creates meaning, but it's not a flower. The flower exists without your thoughts, but an idea or learned emotional response to the flower can create disorder and limitations, and it can close the door to peaceful and joyful existence. I can see that you've been cleaning the clouds of your thoughts, and I agree with you. A trainee, who is also present in the discussion, asked with trepidation, I don't get it. Sometimes the therapists are even saying opposite things. For example, should you change your thoughts with CBT, or should you accept your thoughts with ACT? How can everyone be right in the story? The Buddha looked at him, smiled, and responded, You are right. It seems to be a paradox. All these conflicting and overlapping ideas look confusing and complicated side by side. And yet people are complicated. And when it comes to emotions and cognitions, one size does not fit all. To clothe an entire company of actors, you need a vast selection of different clothes, and the time for each actor to try on and see what suits them, their shape, their character. I hope you enjoyed the story, which reflects uncertainty, the uniqueness of therapy, and the fact that every person is different. Every person comes to therapy for different circumstances. That's why I don't think that it's possible to prescribe a method of therapy which is universally able to help any person to move forward, nor it's possible to provide a preconceived, standardized knowledge about a more joyful and satisfying life. I can provide a therapeutic relationship and use different methods to create situations and experiences so that the person in therapy expands, extends, becomes autonomous, and develops to be more content. A method is a technique to clean and decondition all you have gathered that keeps you away from you and your nature. Who are you? A method is a way to meet yourself. And once the how is dropped, the how is satisfied, and there is not that sense of emergency anymore, and now you can sleep, you don't have panic attacks, you can leave the house, and so on, Psychotherapy moves towards being. People come to therapy to listen to themselves, and I become a witness of their story. Therapists are not scientists. The way I see therapy is a synthesis of scientific techniques and artistic and human expression. Thank you for watching.